Fireside Chats with Grandma, week number 8. And we're here by the fire a little earlier than normal springtime weather. And to kick things off, Grandma's going to tell us about her favorite Easter stories.
Okay. What do I got on my hat? On my head? It's a hat. Well, when I was a girl, everybody wore hats to church. And women wore hats and gloves to go shopping, if you please. In San Francisco, it's not like it is today. It was a very sophisticated city. And if you went there, you always wore a hat and gloves and very formal. It was not like today. Anyhow, we always wore a hat. I have a picture in one of the albums, which I couldn't find, with all my 4 girls and me in our Easter bonnets. So that's why I have this hat on. And it's only about 50 years old, this hat. I've worn it for a lot of Easters. And it's always fun to wear a hat. The priest used to say when I'd come to get the directions for the choir, they'd look to see which hat I had on. Because I always wore a hat. Because my hair was so plain anyhow. I always pulled it back. I liked hats. So we have some Easter stories. Yes, we do. The kids loved, as you kids do, to color Easter eggs. Well, sometimes the week before Easter, we'd get all the eggs colored. It was usually about 5 dozen eggs, and they'd color it and sort of compete to see who could do the fanciest egg. And then, of course, Mom and Dad had to hide them. So they'd all go to bed before Easter. And we had the job of hiding them, but we had a little rule. They all got an Easter basket. And because certain things, certain kids, the way they would get up in the morning and try and find the eggs, we set a rule. You can't find any eggs until you find the Easter basket with your name on it. And usually it was a little basket that had a chocolate bunny in it, and some jelly beans and the grass. And so when they got up in the morning, they knew they had to find their Easter basket. Then they could go after the hard-boiled eggs, which were hidden all over the house. Because where we lived, we had so many dogs and cats and animals that they would eat the eggs. And the kids would never have gotten any. So the eggs were hidden in the house. So it was pretty good for a while, but then all of a sudden, Bruce got very smart. He would find his Easter basket first. Then he would get most of the eggs, hard-boiled eggs. And the little ones weren't too happy with that. So one year, Stan hid his basket, very secret place. And the little ones all found their baskets before Bruce. And he was just going all over the house. He couldn't find it. And all of them were getting all the hard-boiled eggs, and he was still looking for his Easter basket. I finally had to say, "You're hot, you're cold, you're hot, you're cold." And finally, do you know where Grandpa had hidden his basket? Up the chimney. So the little ones were very happy that Easter. They got a lot of hard-boiled eggs, Uncle Bruce did. We used to hide them in different places. Sometimes the baskets would be hanging in the closet under their clothes. But that was the year that Bruce, he was really stymied.
Hi, Grandma, Mom, it's me, Skylar. Can you tell the story when Papa was born at home? Thank you.
Okay. Well, Aunt Louie was the first one. And she, I don't know why, she decided she wasn't going to come. She was due August 20th. Well, the days went by and the days went by and the days went by, and she didn't come and she didn't come. And of course, her dad was overseas and waiting to hear, and every letter took 2 months, so here he was waiting to hear, and no baby. Well, I finally went to the hospital, drove down because I talked to the doctor. He said, "You better come in." So I went in, and the nurses were there who I knew because I was in training with them at one time. And they said, "What are you doing here, Connie?" I said, "Well, I drove myself to the hospital." And they said, "Well," I said something about the baby. "Oh my goodness!" I said, No, I'm not in labor. The doctor just told me to come in." So he did, and then he started me in labor with Louie. And she finally came. So it was a different story with Uncle Bruce. Stan was back overseas again, and here I was. It was June, and I thought, well, he'll be coming, and didn't think too much about it. Started to go to bed that night, and all of a sudden I thought, uh-oh, he's coming. And so I told my mom and dad, who I was staying with, and I was running toward the front door to get in the car, and all of a sudden he was there. So I ran back to the bed and laid down and pulled the cover up, and my mother comes by, and I gave about 2 yells, and she picks up the blanket, and there was Bruce. He was quite different from Louie. He couldn't wait to get here. So meantime, they'd called the doctor, and he'd come. And all I could yell was, "Put water on to boil." So you know what they did with that water? They made coffee. So the doctor called an ambulance to take me indoors to the hospital. So we get there, and they put him in 24-hour isolation in case he contracted some disease or something, which they did. So I didn't see him for 24 hours, and then they brought him back to me. He was fine. So it was quite exciting, and therefore after I had no problem waiting until I got to little Ellen, and she was just like her big sister. She wasn't going to come either, but she finally got there. Took her quite a while too. The others, Stan was always saying, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" as he was driving me to the hospital. And I always made it, but barely with most of them.
That's a great story, and you're a great grandma, and now we're going to take you back to the great greats and talk about a forbidden relationship.
Well, on the mines, of course, there's, like in every place, some people are not too nice to others and don't like them. Well, on the mines, the Welsh people and the Scots people, for some reason, didn't think too much of each other, which you think they would, being from the British Isles, but they didn't. And so they didn't communicate with each other very much. But it got to be funny because one day, Bebop, your Scottish great-grandfather, met Margaret, your Welsh great-grandmother, and there's Ellen put it, "Sparks flew." And they were, before we knew it, they went down to the Justice of the Peace and were married, and 8 months later, Grandpa Stan was born. So it turned out to be sort of a fiery relationship, but they were married well over 50 years.
Everybody ended up being okay with it.
Nobody carried a grudge. Okay, if you're married, you're married. That's it.
It's done. The Welsh and the Scots got together.
Yeah, they did get together. So you're part Welsh, part Scots, and a few other things. Italian, English, French.
We'll get back to those backgrounds and stories in future episodes. This has been week number 8 by the fire with Great Grandma.